Let me tell you something. When you talk about trust between nations, you're talking about something deeper than politics, deeper than money, deeper than headlines. You're talking about a bond that's built through time, through trials, through moments when the world ain't watching. And when you look at Israel and India, you're looking at one of those bonds that didn't happen overnight. It was earned, tested, and proven. Now, see, most folks think trust in the global game comes from power. But no, real trust comes from consistency, and that's where India stands tall. When Israel looks at India, they see a partner who's not just talking about friendship, they're showing it in action. They're not running when the pressure hits. They're not switching sides when the world's opinion changes. India's the kind of friend that shows up, rain or shine. You gotta understand, Israel's a nation that's been surrounded by challenges since day one. They don't hand out trust like free samples. They watch who stays solid when things get tough. And when Israel looked at India, they saw a country that walks its talk. India stood by them in trade, in technology, in defense. And they did it without trying to make noise or grab credit. That's rare in this world. Both nations, they got something in common. They know struggle. They know what it means to fight for independence, to build something from scratch, to turn doubt into destiny. When you've been through that kind of grind, you recognize the same fire in somebody else. Israel sees that in India, that hunger, that discipline, that long game mindset. And let's not forget, it's not just about leaders shaking hands. It's about people respecting each other's journey. Israel trusts India because they see a nation that keeps its word. They see a culture that values loyalty and honor. And when you got that kind of energy, man, you don't need to say much. Your actions do all the talking. In a world full of alliances built on convenience, Israel and India built theirs on conviction. They share intelligence. They build weapons together. They invest in each other's success, not out of fear, but out of mutual respect. It's that kind of partnership that doesn't fade with time. So when you ask why Israel trusts India more than anyone, the answer is simple, because India earned it. Through patience, through power, through purpose. Not by shouting, but by showing. Not by promises, but by proof. And that right there is how real trust is built, not just between people, but between nations that see the same truth in each other's eyes. Trust is not something that just appears out of nowhere. It's something that's built through consistency, loyalty, and time. When you talk about two nations trusting each other, it's not about how many agreements they've signed or how many times their leaders have smiled for the camera. It's about how consistent they've been when the lights aren't shining, when things get quiet, and when challenges show up. That's where India shines in the eyes of Israel. India has shown time and time again that it's not swayed by outside pressure or global noise. When they make a commitment, they stick with it. When they say they're a friend, they act like one. That kind of consistency is rare in a world where alliances shift faster than the headlines change. India doesn't play politics with loyalty. They're not running after quick wins or trying to impress anyone. They move with purpose, with patience, and with principle. That's exactly what makes them dependable in Israel's eyes. Israel has seen nations come and go, promises made and broken, support offered and withdrawn when it became inconvenient. But with India, there's a certain steadiness that gives confidence. You can see it in how India balances its global relationships, how it makes decisions based on long-term vision rather than short-term gain. It's the same consistency that defines strong leadership, the kind that doesn't react but responds with thought and strength. Israel, being a nation that's had to rely on itself for survival, doesn't hand out trust easily. They test it, they observe. They remember who showed up and who didn't. And through years of cooperation in defense, technology, trade, and intelligence, India has proven that it's a partner that doesn't waver. That's what consistency looks like. Not just showing up when things are good, but being there when things are uncertain. Consistency builds confidence. It builds a track record that speaks louder than speeches. When a nation like India shows the same character in every interaction, every deal, every handshake, it sends a message: you can count on us. That's why Israel sees India differently. Not because of words, but because of the rhythm of reliability that India brings to the table time after time, without fail, without hesitation, and without changing its tune when the world starts making noise. India stands by Israel in action, not just in words, and that's what makes the difference in a world full of talkers. You see, a lot of countries know how to talk about friendship, how to make big statements about partnership and cooperation. But when it's time to actually move, to stand firm, they start hesitating. India doesn't do that. When Israel looks around for real allies, they notice that India doesn't just show up for the photo opportunities. They show up when something real needs to get done. That's a rare quality, especially in international relationships, where words are cheap and promises fade fast. When India supports Israel, it's not for show. It's through real actions that matter, buying technology, investing in defense systems, sharing intelligence, creating jobs, and building trust through everyday cooperation. These aren't symbolic gestures. They're powerful moves that say, we mean business. India knows that action builds reputation far more than empty statements. That's why even when global pressure builds, when the world tries to tell India which side to take, they stay focused on what's real instead of what's popular. That consistency in action earns a level of respect that words could never reach. Israel sees a partner that doesn't just praise them in public and disappear in private. India's commitment shows up in trade numbers, joint ventures, shared military exercises, and a growing sense of mutual reliance. That's what gives their relationship substance. You can see that when India votes, when India negotiates, and when India chooses to engage in projects that strengthen Israel's hand. Every one of those steps says more than 1,000 speeches ever could. Both nations understand that in this world, you can't trust words that don't lead to movement. Action reveals loyalty. It shows what you truly stand for. And India's pattern of backing its friends through tangible deeds, not just political lines or diplomatic gestures, proves that its friendship isn't conditional. It's grounded in principle. Israel recognizes that when India shakes your hand, it means something. Because for India, loyalty isn't seasonal and support isn't situational. It's steady, deliberate, and shown through decisions that cost something, decisions that speak with a strength far louder than words ever. Well, both nations share a history of struggle and resilience, and that's where their bond finds its deepest roots. When you look at Israel and India, you see two countries that had to fight for every inch of their freedom, two nations that were told they couldn't make it, and yet they did. They didn't inherit comfort or power. They built it from the ground up. That kind of shared experience creates an understanding that doesn't need to be spoken out loud. When Israel sees India, they see a people who know the weight of sacrifice, the long nights of uncertainty, and the unshakable will to rise above it all. India's journey was never easy. Decades of colonial rule left the country drained, divided, and struggling to stand on its feet. But through perseverance, discipline, and unity, it built itself back up, turning struggle into strength. Israel's story mirrors that in so many ways. Surrounded by conflict, burdened by the past, constantly tested by adversity, yet refusing to give up, refusing to be defined by fear. Both nations share that spirit, the resilience that turns pain into power and doubt into determination. That's why their connection feels so natural. It's not just political strategy, it's emotional recognition. Both nations look at each other and see reflections of their own history, the endless battles, the rebuilding, the hope that refused to die. They understand each other's pain because they've lived it. They respect each other's strength because they've earned it. This kind of mutual respect can't be manufactured in boardrooms or diplomatic meetings. It's something forged in struggle. Resilience builds trust because when you know someone has been through the fire and still stands tall, you know they're built to last. Israel knows that India doesn't back down easily, just as India knows that Israel will fight for its survival, no matter the odds. This shared determination creates a bond that doesn't break when things get tough. Instead, it grows stronger. When two nations have walked through storms and learned how to survive through willpower and belief, they recognize that same fire in each other's eyes. And that recognition becomes the foundation for an unspoken alliance grounded in respect, strength, and shared history. Mutual respect and reliability form the foundation of their bond, and that's something that can't be faked or rushed. Respect isn't given just because of power or influence. It's earned through action, consistency, and integrity. When Israel and India look at each other, they don't see a one-sided relationship where one leads and the other follows. They see equals who understand each other's values and principles. That's the kind of dynamic that makes partnerships last. India doesn't try to dominate, it collaborates. It doesn't interfere in Israel's choices, it respects them. That attitude builds trust because respect and reliability go hand in hand. In today's world, so many relationships between nations are based on convenience. They're friendly when it benefits them, distant when it doesn't. But what makes India and Israel's connection unique is that both understand the importance of being dependable. When Israel looks at India, it sees a country that shows up when it says it will, delivers when it promises, and stands steady even when global tides shift. Reliability is a rare currency, and India carries it with pride. That consistency makes Israel confident that India isn't just there for optics or political advantage. It's there because it values the relationship. Respect also comes from recognizing each other's strengths. Israel respects India's growing influence, its wisdom, and its peaceful approach to power. India respects Israel's innovation, courage, and its ability to thrive despite constant challenges. They don't compete for recognition. They complement each other's strengths. That's how you build real partnership, by acknowledging what the other brings to the table and trying to overshadow it. Reliability isn't about perfection. It's about showing up every single time. Over the years, India has proven that it's a friend who stands firm, even when the rest of the world hesitates. Israel doesn't have to guess where India stands because India's actions speak clearly. And in the world of diplomacy, that level of clarity is rare and priceless. Both nations have learned that respect isn't about loud declarations, it's about quiet consistency. Reliability doesn't demand attention, it earns it through action. When two nations move with that kind of integrity and steadiness, their connection becomes more than just an alliance. It becomes a trust built on the strongest foundation there is. Mutual respect. Their partnership is rooted in conviction, not politics, and that's what separates it from so many others in the world today. Conviction is what makes you stand your ground when others start shifting theirs. It's what keeps you loyal when it would be easier to walk away. Both India and Israel operate from a place of principle rather than pressure, and that's exactly why their relationship carries weight. When they come together, it's not because of short-term gains or global trends. It's because both nations believe in the same core values: independence, strength, and self-reliance. That kind of conviction can't be manufactured. It's something that comes from a shared sense of purpose. India doesn't base its alliances on who's popular at the moment. It's not a follower of the crowd. It makes decisions that align with its own vision and values. Israel recognizes that because they've lived the same way for decades, doing what they believe is right, even when the world disagrees. This shared conviction builds trust because it means both sides are guided by integrity rather than convenience. They know where the other stands, and that's a level of certainty few partnerships enjoy. Politics changes with seasons. Governments come and go. Leaders rise and fall. But conviction stays the same. That's why the bond between India and Israel feels so unshackable. It's not tied to political headlines, but to a deeper alignment of spirit. Both countries value their sovereignty, their right to make their own choices, and their determination to protect what they've built. They don't seek approval for their beliefs, they live by them. That's what keeps their partnership strong through the ups and downs of international affairs. When a relationship is built on conviction, it can weather storms. It doesn't bend under outside pressure, and it doesn't fade when circumstances change. Both India and Israel have proven that their friendship isn't conditional or transactional. It's rooted in understanding and shared principles that run deeper than strategy. They stand together because they see the world through a similar lens, one that values freedom, resilience, and faith in their people. In a world full of shifting alliances, this partnership stands firm because it's not built on politics. It's built on belief, on character, and on the courage to stay true to what both nations stand for. India earned Israel's trust through proof, not promises, and that's the kind of trust that can't be bought or faked. Promises are easy to make, but proof takes time, effort, and action. Over the years, India has shown Israel that it doesn't just talk about partnership. It lives it, breathes it, and proves it through consistency. Trust between nations isn't built in conferences or speeches. It's built in quiet moments of reliability, in shared missions, in cooperation that keeps showing results. When Israel looks at India, it doesn't see words. It sees a history of actions that match those words. And that's where real credibility comes from. India didn't earn that trust overnight. It came through years of showing up, through deals that turned into progress, through promises that turned into delivery. When Israel needed a dependable partner in technology, India was there to collaborate. When it came to defense, India didn't just buy equipment. It built joint ventures, shared innovations, and proved its seriousness about long-term cooperation. Every time India fulfilled its word, it strengthened the foundation of that relationship. In a world full of changing loyalties, that kind of proof becomes priceless. Israel values results because it lives in a part of the world where survival depends on actions, not intentions. They've seen nations that promise friendship but disappear when things get difficult. India's different. It doesn't shift its position when times get tough. It proves loyalty through its decisions and its steadiness. Whether it's voting patterns in global organizations or bilateral trade and defense cooperation, India has maintained a record of backing up its commitments with real outcomes. That kind of proof builds not just respect, but deep trust. Promises fade, but proof stays. It's visible in every successful collaboration, every shared innovation, every handshake that turns into action. Israel knows that India's word carries weight because it's been tested and verified through time. Trust like that doesn't need to be renewed. It only needs to be remembered. When a nation earns another's faith through proof instead of promises, it becomes more than just an ally. It becomes a partner that can be counted on, no matter the situation, no matter the pressure, and no matter how the world around them changes.